Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Wealth Within. Today, I have Chris O'Brien with me again. He is back to talk about all things money, currency, and wealth, how to protect it, what it really is, how to make more of it, all things currency. You're not going to want to miss this. It will open up your eyes. All right. Thank you, Chris, for joining me again today. I love that you have agreed to come back because I think this is a really important topic, being money and currency and the economy. And it's a really important and timely topic right now. We're in April of 2023, and there's a lot of things that have happened. We've seen some more bank collapses and things like that. And I want to talk to that, but I think for people to really understand where we're going with our money and our currency and this whole system of trade is we need to go to the past, look at the past, then go to the present, and then sort of look to the future on where we're going. So we can sort of do this full circle, as you like to say, this zoomed out view of everything. So I would love for you to get us started back with some history, because many people may not realize this, but the current financial system that we're in is really not much more than 100 some years old.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you said it best. One of the best things to do, how you introduced it perfectly, is sometimes we don't know what's going on today if we don't know what has happened in the past. And we were chatting right before this too, is like, if we are not aware of these cycles, and pause for money for just a moment, this is like set life, right? Our habits, our thoughts. Like if we're not aware of these subconscious repetitive cycles over and over and over and over, we're going to keep repeating them. And then as we repeat them and nothing changes, we're going to blame something. And usually that blame goes externally, and we blame our boss, we blame our job, our family, our friends, our income, the government. That's why it's so important to know about getting deep into the, every single day, because many of us, especially that are watching this, I'm sure many of you guys know that a lot of the history that we've been told, right? A lot of the history that we're told in our textbooks, told by our parents, told by our politicians and our teachers, regardless, good intentions or not, as everyone is different. A lot of this information we've been told is in fact not all the way true, or has been distorted, or has been skewed, or has been altered, or just completely shifted, so to speak, just completely shifted. So let's backtrack, because we were talking too, it's crazy to think however many years we've been here on this planet, we've really gotten into this mess really, really deeply financially in the last 100 years. Literally in the last 100 years.
And I don't think most people realize that.
Yeah, no, we just think this is normal because we've come accustomed to normalize it so much that now anyone that even questions it, it's like, well, what do you mean you're going against what I've been told? And we take on that timeline as ours. We take on that timeline as truth and all of those things. So let's backtrack. Let's just time travel. We'll go back 100 years. You go back to 1918. And this was actually when the Federal Reserve was voted in by Congress as a central bank of the U.S. Now, when you look at the word Federal Reserve, you have federal and reserve, okay? Federal government. However, this was not actually connected through a government. It's a private entity. And then you reserve, meaning they have reserves on hand. They don't. That's where they start printing money with inflation, digitizing money in the last couple of years, which we'll get to when we get to the future. And then what happened after this is it was in 1929 that the U.S. Inc., the incorporated, the business entity, not the constitutional republic of the people and all the things, they actually filed for their third bankruptcy. And this then promoted and prompted the Great Depression, which I'm sure many of people can remember that in history books, right? Oh, the Great Depression, living in poverty. And so,
and I think even why the crash on Wall Street in 1929, why it even happened, we're told one narrative and it's not quite accurate.
Exactly. It's like a game of telephone.
Yeah.
Who's gonna correct this message, because we're just picking up the phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
That whisper down the alley.
Yeah, exactly. How did
and we're like 100 years down that alley.
Yeah, so just such subtle little things. So in response to that, March 9th, the US declared bankruptcy in 1933, and then the US started taking loans from the Federal Reserve. Because why? The US needed help. And then this repeated many times as well. So imagine you calling for help as a kid. Who comes and bails you out? Mom and dad.
Yes.
Take it in the country wise, you as a kid was the country. And at that time, instead of figuring this out, we had to go beg mom and dad, which became mom and dad, not the best mom and dad, the Federal Reserve, to start giving us money, right? No, with that required loans. Like we don't have to pay back loans. We became US citizens. We became the collateral. This is where this whole monster birthed.
Say that it's not really our mom and dad. It was like they kind of stepped in. We didn't really choose this in a lot of ways. And just maybe to interject a little bit, if you even go back in history further to after the American Revolution, we were in debt. And we did the same thing, except that time we went to who we were actually fighting. We went to the Bank of England for our bailout, and that came with some consequences. So even back then, it was still a cycle that we had been repeating. It was just in a different form.
Yes, exactly. So imagine these parents that pretended to be your parents to come save you, gave you allowance. However, that allowance, right, was like a loan, but we couldn't pay back that loan. So now you have interest accumulating. And instead of paying interest, you now have income tax being birthed. And during tax season, now you have the IRS arising to pay back interest to the Fed. And then to combat all of that, the president at the time was Roosevelt, and he actually gave up all of our gold to pay the debt. That's where we really started to go downhill. One, we were in debt. Two, we couldn't pay back the loan. Number three, the interest that we owed to the Fed came at the expense of quote unquote taxpayers. So all the hard work that we do, they're going to take money from our taxes to pay the interest on the debt they got us in the first place. And if that didn't all work out, citizens became collateral, which means we started to get traded on the stock market. That's where you have the birth certificate system begin to take place. So
without our knowledge or consent as well.
Without our knowledge. Exactly.
And I think to zone in a little further, all of this happened within like maybe a 5-year window. It was a very short window that Roosevelt enacted all of this stuff, created the IRS, all of this stuff. It happened in a very, very short period of time.
Just like that. We weren't even conceived. We weren't even in the womb yet. We weren't even exist. We were just little fragments of quantum particles and consciousness floating in who knows where, right? And even our parents, right? Given how old they were. So you're talking your grandparents when they were almost like, if your grandparents, guys, were doing a podcast when they were 30, 40, whatever, 20, that's what's happening now here. So you're seeing what we're talking about, what's happening today. We're looking, how can we break these cycles, right? So now you have 1933, which is, again, 100 years ago. Then you have 1944, which is now something called the Bretton Woods Agreement. And this is where there was an agreement with 44 countries right after World War II, right? That everyone would get back, right? The Bretton Woods Agreement, and to fix your currencies to compensate with the dollar. However, here's the cool part. When I say cool, the good part, the dollar was fixed to gold at the time. So countries came under agreement after this last war, like, all right, we're done with war. We're going to go back to the dollar. However, to do that, we're going to all sign an agreement at the Bretton Woods in New Hampshire, right? Bretton Woods, New Hampshire here in the US. And to sign that, that would make all countries in agreement that we go back to this, right? Go back to this. That was backed by this. That was backed by gold.
And previously, it was the British pound sterling before World War II, correct? That was like the standard. So the standard was the British pound sterling. World War II happens, and they say, America, we're going to come to your Federal Reserve.
Yes, exactly. So you are hitting it right on the nose. If we go back farther, this is where history does get very interesting, because it's not like, oh, cool, how does it apply today? That was 100 years ago. Well, if you really learn it, you can apply it right now, and it's a game changer. That's why people are having these breakthroughs with financial literacy, because they're seeing the patterns. Because if you go back farther, past 1900s, you're going into like the Rothschilds, how they, the Napoleon, and how they turned the pound and the euro and all these things. We're just giving you 100 years, because there's a lot more to it. So we're shrinking it down, right? So after the agreement, pegged back to gold, 1971 came around, right? 30 years. That was like the great American year. There was all sorts of good things happening. 1971 came around, and then we had a guy named Nixon that came into presidency. And what he did is he took us off in 1971. I believe it was during Christmas time. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember exactly. While we're all busy with the holidays, Santa, caroling. Yeah, just through the night, just signing us off. And then what he did.
Oh, by the way, because it was another bankruptcy that we were
Yeah,
getting into, right?
yeah.
So the US was coming up to another
Mhm.
bankruptcy.
And he announced it like on a commercial.
Yeah.
Like, hey, pardon the interruption, audience. We are now off the gold standard. Blah, blah, blah. Get back to your scheduled
Yeah.
program.
And didn't he say it was now illegal to own? When did they recall the gold?
Oh, yeah. The recall,
Was
that
that
was, I
Roosevelt
think,
or was that Nixon?
no, that was Roosevelt.
Okay, that's
I'm
what I
pretty
thought.
sure. Again, don't quote us exact. We're not
Yeah.
historians. We're doing our best to put
Yes,
all the
and
dots to
definitely do
connect.
your own research too. But
But
we
yeah,
did
they
at
called the
one
recall.
point. Yep. At one point, you had to turn over all of your gold
Yep.
to the government.
Yep. Exactly.
Crazy.
So you had to turn over your gold. Problems became because as soon as we got off, right? Because we were spending a lot of money with the Vietnam War in 1971.
Yes.
That was another war, right? World War II, we stopped. However, the Vietnam War came. And many of you guys know what these wars are all about. They're just ways for central banks to pump the currency, to own certain things. So when he took us off from the gold standard, we now detached gold to the dollar.
Yeah, now
And
that
as
we're
soon as
talking,
that happened,
it was
yeah.
definitely Roosevelt that we had to pull all our gold in because they said we're going to do the gold
Mm-hmm.
reserve, so we need all your gold because it was
Yes.
after we got off the gold reserve that in the 70s that you could buy gold again. I'm like
Yes. Yeah, you're good.
processing as we're yeah. So that
Exactly.
was the
And
timeline.
they were buying it back. They were buying it back, an ounce of gold. They were buying it back for $35 an ounce. Look what it is today. It's
Yeah,
almost it's over 2,000 an ounce.
over
And it should be
2000 now.
way higher, let alone silver, which we'll talk about in a moment too. So we're taking off the gold standard 1971. Therefore, now this dollar, gold back, gold standard dollar, became what's called the petro fiat dollar. And petro is petroleum. And petroleum is another word for oil in a way. And why? Because there was a man, Henry Kissinger, who worked for the department. And he traveled to Saudi Arabia after this whole gold standard was eliminated and we were taken off of it. And he went to Saudi Arabia, which, if you guys don't know, Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest suppliers of oil for the world. So think about every 200 plus countries, the countries that needed oil for gas, for energy, for cars, for housing, for manufacturing, for anything, for energy itself. That was the energy at the time, was oil. In order to buy that, what did you have to use? They said you have to use our dollar now. And if you don't, we will start a war. And if you do, Kissinger told the Saudi royals, if you use our dollar, petro fiat dollar, for your oil and make the whole world have to use it for oil as well, we will send our military, the military industrial complex, right? The MIC, there's good and bad. They will send our military that will protect all of your oil fields, that will protect the Middle East, which look what's happened since with how much destruction they've done and how they've overthrown Gaddafi and all these other people because they were looking to go back to gold.
Yes.
So really a lot of wars, World War I, World War II, even 9/11, like these wars that we have been shown, the reason it's not because just terrorism, right? And I don't condone it. The reason is money. It's control of the financial system. Who owns the money owns the world in a way because we all use it and need it. And it's just the world we live in. I know there's people that say, oh, money's evil. And yes, you got to zoom out though. You're talking 8 billion people in 200 countries that are doing it. So once they did that, now this became not worthless, but the value decreased slowly. Not right away. It decreased slowly. So literally you have this piece of paper and that happened in 1971. Imagine this corner getting folded, right? A couple of years later, getting folded. A couple, like 10 years later, it's folding. Now it's like shriveling up. And now you see some of these graphics where the dollar looks like this.
Yeah.
Right? So the purchasing power
I think
down.
I read recently that it's lost 93% of its value. At this point in time, it's lost 93%. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And you don't see it because you don't look at the inflation.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's hard because you look at this like, oh, that's a dollar.
It's like it hides it. Like that narrative sort of hides that the real value of the dollar.
Exactly. That inflation hides the dollar. So it's not like, okay, well, this looks the same. It's still a dollar. I can still get a gumball. Like I could still get a scratcher. Well, it's going to take, that's why gas now, it's not that gas went up in prices. You just need more of these to buy a gallon. The gas is the same. It's all the same. The eggs are the same. The wood's the same. You need more of these though, because these are going down in value. So after 1971, all that happened. And that really kind of put the world at the mercy of our financial system. And then to correspond to that, all right, now that the US, which were bullies at the time, own the world with this because they held Saudi Arabia captive with their military. If you don't, we will.
And this is where our sanctions come in. Our sanctions, we can impose sanctions because people are dependent on that dollar. Otherwise, the sanctions wouldn't mean anything.
So imagine a schoolyard bullying the whole school. And if you don't do this, the bully's going to punch you in the face. And instead of punching you like I would right here, oh, here's a sanction, here's a tariff, here's a thing. And then what looked good at first was slowly wrecking US's influence, or as far as other countries' influence, and making the US dominant in a way that wasn't in its best integrity. So it's like weakening the US by making them look like they're tough and strong in a bullying of nations. So you create the fear. Now you have to surrender. And if you fought back, like Gaddafi, for example, who wanted to keep gold, he wanted to rebuild his palace and help the people of Libya. Well, look what happened. And you'll hear it portrayed as he was a terrorist.
Yeah, history has a different narrative.
They will twist and distort the truth so we don't wake up to what this piece of paper truly has done. Because another thing people ask, well, if it's not backed by gold, what is it backed? Like our military uses it, like our stock market uses it. It's got to be worth something. It's worth something because we believe it is. That's all it is, right? It's worth something because we believe it is. There is no physical, right, asset that backs this. And why is because in 1973, you have the SWIFT system that was born. So the SWIFT system is now the digital system that helps us move these dollars. Because here's the thing, the Federal Reserve, remember, let's go back to that really quick before we get into the present moment. The Federal Reserve is nothing federal. It has no reserves, meaning
it is privately owned.
Privately owned, and they can keep printing money and money and money because they don't listen to government orders. They have no boss. They are the boss. They have no boss. They have no one telling them what to do.
They're like the head of the cartel. So if you're looking for the head of the cartel,
yes, it's they call it the Kraken, the tentacle, the octopus, like born out of London, the financial, and then the tentacles trickled into everywhere, and it gave trafficking and drugs and crime. So all this stuff that you guys are hearing right now and seeing in the world, this isn't normal. People think, oh, it's just normal. We live in a world like this. It's not normal. We've normalized saying it's normal because we've been so repeatedly told this lie that money is the same. No, we've got it under control. So the Fed will print money, and the more they print money, the more money goes into circulation. Now, that may sound like a good thing in some way because, oh, there's more money out there, I can make more money. Yes, with more money in circulation, meaning prices will have to match, because if there's more money out there, prices can raise because everyone has more money. Yet then they don't teach this, that most of that money doesn't even reach the average person. It goes into these shell companies. It goes into laundering. It goes into all sorts of other things that I won't even mention here that are not in highest intentions.
And if you think at it from this simple way of every time they print money, the wealth gap increases. So there's nothing equitable about them printing money. All it is a transfer of wealth. And I think in the last, I would say probably since the 2008 crisis, probably, and especially within the last 3 years, you've probably seen the biggest wealth transfer ever.
Huge transfer. There is a transfer happening, and there's one more date I want to just to backtrack one more time because it's something that everyone knows. It was 1912. There was a boat. There was a boat called the Titanic. Okay, we all think that's a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, and oh, so sad, and like, oh, it's a sad movie. The reason they made a movie was to cover up the fact that it wasn't just an iceberg hitting a boat accidentally, no one picked up, and oh, we lost everybody. The people that were on that boat were people that were in support of the Federal Reserve and the central banking system, JP Morgan Chase, for example. And what they did, you can look this up too, is right before they took off, they stepped right off the boat. Like, imagine it docking off and they just stepped right off and no one saw. So everyone thinks they're on the boat. Everyone thinks they're there, the people that support the Fed. Then you have guys like Jacob Astor. I'm blanking on the couple other names, but they were the ones with power at the time in government that were resisting the Fed. They did not want the Fed to come in and start printing because they know what would happen to the economy. Once the Fed was birthed, that's when the economy was done. We then went from a asset-backed currency to a debt-backed currency, right? Because currency and money are two separate things. Okay. And we're not going to get into that. You can learn that in other places as well. So that's what happened with the Titanic. It was purposely sunk to eliminate the resistance of the Fed that now controlled the world. And that's something to chew on too. So that's how they make movies, predictive program us. They make movies just so they can basically get us not to point fingers or question it. Because how are you going to question a type? That's a sad movie.
Yeah. And once you hear the same narrative over and over again, regardless if it's true or false, when you hear it over and over again, your brain kind of tricks you into thinking that that's true. Exactly. It doesn't matter whether it is or not, but that's programming.
Hypnotic rhythm. That's exactly how evil works. Hypnotically, like hypnotize you, the same thing over and over to you, like believe a lie enough, it becomes a truth. Truth and lies. And the matrix we live in with our money, the food we eat, the water we drink, it's fake food, all this create confusion, mental health is because there is a world of lies we've been living in. And the truth is now triggering those lies, and the response is what's causing so much backlash in the world. And that's what many people are seeing that's happening out there. So now let's come back. So we had a little time travel. Now we're here in present moment. 4 years ago, 3 years ago, something happened, right? We had a little scare, a whole lockdown, a whole world shut down. And oh my gosh, little do people know that something happened. That is when we started to turn the corner, because there's a lot of other details, a lot of other dates we're not even going to get into. Just to keep this moving, is in 2020, March 2020, the president at the time, the 45th president, Donald Trump, he actually he dissolved the Federal Reserve into the Treasury, and nobody saw it. And it was actually in something called the CARES Act. And when this happened, that's when things started to change. So imagine those in power no longer have the ability to use the money and to manipulate. So what happened? Everything flooded to Bitcoin. Everything went to crypto. And what happened to crypto? Bitcoin went to $76,000 per Bitcoin. That's crazy. And the question is, where'd all that money come from? Because if the Fed was dissolved, here's where it gets crazy. From 2020 to now, 80% of the money circulating has been literally printed or digitized in the last 3 years. 3 years, 80% of the money in the world was printed or digitized, right? It's called Tether, USDT, like the digital version was printed or digitized in the last 3 years. And 97 years prior
when you think about that.
Absolutely insane, crazy. That is no recipe. That is, you're basically saying, let's jump out of an airplane. No one has a parachute. And we're falling. And it takes a little bit to hit the ground. Yet when that ground gets closer, people start freaking out and there's no parachute. So what is that parachute? And we'll give you guys some options and solutions as we wrap it too. So that happened in 2020. You now have the cryptocurrency market pumping. You now have people making tons of money, tons of government relief programs, kind of blending as if money is coming back to the people. Because like I said, when we get to the future, there are good things happening. We were saying,
and to your point on that, when you zoom out even on that, where you said there was a lot of consolidation of money too, because think about what happened to small businesses and all that other stuff. So you think, well, where did all that money go? Well, just think, I'm not going to tell you, but think what was shut down and where did your money go instead? That's just another transfer of wealth that people don't see. But when you kind of like peel back those layers, you're like, okay, so I wasn't buying from my local, grocery mart or my local this or that. Well, where's all that money going? It's going to all the big guys, and it's just another transfer of money. And we blindly go and do it.
And we don't question it.
We don't question it. We don't question it. And you think, what else was I supposed to do? What else was I supposed to do?
Exactly. And he's so good, spot on, because the whole thing, when the lockdowns happened, there were distractions left and right. Now, that's the tricky part, because there's a global awakening all while this is happening. You have systems collapsing, systems rising, people waking up, people getting exposed, then people's shadow work coming out, spiritual battle, financial war, world war. I mean, it's if you're here now listening, you're here for a reason, because this is the most monumental shift in humanity will ever experience. So like you were saying, Like Michelle was saying, when you have a transfer of wealth, those that are transferring it to make it smooth as possible, it's not fun to hear. The less friction, the less panic they cause, and the less chaos, even if it's good or bad, the better it is. It's going to help everybody. That's the hard part to grasp. It's like, oh, what about all of us? It's like, I know it's out of our control. Like, I can't write executive orders. I can't sit at the Fed chair. Like, I wish I could and speak my truth. What can we do to control that? So all those distractions going on with like TV, the masks, the jabs, the awakening, the conspiracy, all that stuff. Yeah, if you got caught up in it, you could. I was too. And it was also helpful. While that was happening is when they were transferring a lot of this power over back to the people slowly. So back to that whole part. Now, here we have 2023, and something recently has been occurring because the dollar is losing its value. Like you said, it's losing its value. Its purchasing power is going down. More money is being inflated. Okay. So people that have money in their savings account that's been there for years, if it's 50K, it's not really 50K, because when you had 50K 3 years ago, 5 years ago, you could buy more stuff with that. You can invest in more property. You can do more things. Like, that's what they say. Gas was $1 back in my day, Chris, or, eggs were 40 cents. Now they're $8.
And I think people often overlook that, where they say, but I still have that 50K, 100K in my bank account. But you're exactly right. But look what that's buying you.
Exactly.
That's the devaluation of your money. And I think I think it's an oversight for a lot of people, because it's really not that hard to wrap your head around it when you think about it. Okay, I have 50K, but now that 50K can't buy what 50K bought even 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a big transfer of housing that happened back in 2022. I mean, you could buy property, and people were buying up property, getting out of cities, doing all this stuff. Now those properties, some of them have doubled in less than 3 years. That's insane.
Crazy. Yeah, crazy. Exactly. So that all is happening, and the purchasing power that we have goes down. So that's where there's even articles today, like people that are making $250,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Because that's why so many people, our parents, for example, put money in the stock market, put in the 401, put in the, life insurance instead of in the bank, because they knew in the bank doesn't do much. At least put it somewhere where it can do something.
Yeah.
Now the places they've been putting it aren't even safe and guaranteed.
Yeah.
And that's
people
like
have
the
lost
scary part.
their retirement accounts have, because of this stock market and all this other stuff. Now they're looking at what they have there. Not only, it's not even the same amount, it's actually less, which is worth, because at least what you had before could buy so much. And that's less, but now you even have less that buys less. I know that sounds like a lot of less, but
yeah. And the stock market, in the stock market, you'll hear the repeated copy and paste. Oh, it's normal. It fixes itself. It corrects itself. Like, guys, it's done that for decades. That's why we've been in a debt-based economy. This time is different, though, because the correction is not correcting with the same monetary supply. It's a bigger supply of currency. So as much as the balloon fills up, eventually it pops. You can't keep filling a balloon up. That's what they're trying to do. And the goal of evil is, all right, who's going to take the pop? Who's going to take the pop? No one wants to.
Or we got to pass this on to, and it's usually the little guys.
Yeah, and it's your problem. Oh, no, it's the taxpayer's problem. So we need you to pay more taxes to pay more things that we owe that we can't pay for. It is absolutely crazy when you talk about the intricacies. So here we are today. Now let's go today. So you have the inflation, you have the currency that's overloading. Now you have, all of a sudden, countries that make up 80% of the population that live in these countries, like Russia, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. That's the BRICS alliance. Some of you have heard this. I've heard about these countries. I've heard about these things. Now you have Mexico's applying. You have Iran. You have Saudi Arabia joining. You have Turkey joining. You have these countries, aside from the US, Canada, EU, Germany, UK, Italy, and Japan, and Mexico. Mexico and Japan have recently said we're going to do that. France recently said they're looking to work with China more than the US. So the G7 is literally turning into a G4, then a G3. Guess what's going to be left after all said and done? Probably a G1.
Yeah.
USA, America. What became the bully, literally what became the school bully, is now in
Like
detention.
alone in
Now no one
the
wants to hang out
schoolyard.
with you. You grow up and you're like, why did I bully everybody? And
Mhm.
we're going through this as a collective
Yeah.
in this
I
country.
just thought of something. You know what we are? I feel like the US is right now. We're like that kid that peaked in high school. Right?
Exactly.
We're like that
We
kid
thought,
that peaked in high school, and you look back and you're like, yeah, dude, like, yeah, you need to stop that. That what you
and,
did in high school is not going to get you what you can now.
and we
And I
thought
kind
the
of feel
world,
like that's where we are.
yeah, and we thought the world revolved around us.
Yeah,
And all of
yeah,
a
and we could do
sudden,
anything and bully
nobody's
our
going to stop
way, and
us. No one's going to get us in trouble.
no,
Even the principal is intimidated by
yeah,
us. And the principal is us, the people.
yeah,
So you have these BRICS nations that are coming together. And I know I don't want to backtrack. 2017, this alliance got stronger because our president at the time, Trump, whether your take on him or not as a person, that's fine. Look at as the message and the things he
mhm,
did. He went and created an alliance globally with these countries. That's why you heard he went to North Korea. He visited the
yeah,
royal family. He visited NATO. He went to the Vatican. Like who travels all these places? No presidents do that. And if they did, it was for nefarious purposes. He
yeah. It
was
was
letting
more
them
for
know
like a
what
coup.
yeah, he was letting them know what's coming. Like, we caught you. Like, we have all the information. We're going to take our gold back. We're going to reset this whole world in a good way, not your World Economic Forum, eat bugs, live in a virtual
Yeah,
transhumanism
yeah.
way. We're
Own
not going
nothing
down that
and be
path.
happy nonsense. Like
Not going down that
who's
path.
ever happy with that, right?
Yeah. So for those that are watching, you're like thinking this, you could take a breath. We're not going down that path because there's too many
No.
awake. There's too much has been done, and you'll see why. It'll
And
fall off.
more people are waking up, I would even say by the minute, by the second,
Yeah.
because it's all
Every
just being
second.
late. It's hard to look at things without using common sense anymore because the
Yep.
obvious is just so obvious. Like you can only tell lies for so much. It's like I've often heard it equated to, the emperor, like you're finally seeing to that the emperor has no clothes, and now everybody's seeing it.
There you go. Show them. That's why, like, let me just end it. You can't end it without learning a lesson. You can't end it without
Yes.
something to compare it to. We
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be able to move on. We'll repeat it again.
Yeah.
If Trump just said this 5 years, because it makes sense now. Is that 4 years ago? I was like, why don't they just stop it
Yeah.
all? Like, just they caught them all, stop it all. Doesn't matter because you have millions and billions of people that are still living this matrix program in their mind. You would cause more damage stopping it all at one
Yeah.
moment, like coming to a hard stop, like cold turkey this,
Yeah.
cold turkey that.
And
Never
that's like
work out, go
ultimate
work out. You
fear
can't
and
even walk.
chaos.
Yeah,
That's
that's
just
what they
chaos.
didn't want. You got to be careful. It took 100 years to get here. It may take 5 to 10 years to get out of it.
Yeah.
And that's where we got to have patience. And that's why some people are like, oh, why don't they just do? There's a lot happening. You're just waiting for that big moment where everyone gets on the same page. We're close.
Yeah.
We're close. You just got to be patient. So he created the alliance. You guys probably remember if you look this up. I got stuff on my website. We'll put it all. We'll connect it all. My
Yes.
Telegram. There was a whole thing where he created peace in the Middle East. He was the only president not to start a war, and the media bashed him for it, and they called him weak and all this stuff. And all these countries are praising him. Like in Saudi Arabia, he got a sword dance. In Japan, he was able to hold the trophy of a sumo champion. No one does that. No one gets that to do that unless they're someone of that importance that can change the planet. He stepped foot, first president in North Korea. He walked in front of the Queen of England, who's not here. Like, just crazy what that man did. And he was in a bed of wolves and just a bed of rattlesnakes and vipers and God knows what. So he created the alliance. And then he started getting out of the way. And that's why you had this fake Biden inauguration and all that stuff, because if he was always in the spotlight, no one could get over blaming him. That's how strong mainstream media was.
Yeah.
In the background, these BRICS nations, back to them, they are now creating alliances. They are now agreeing to go back to gold. So now, here today and going forward, good things. We are going to a gold standard. It's actually here right now until a moment happens where we make the jump back over. And to do that, we've got to get all the currencies of the world back to a level playing field. And once you get them all at the same level, you can back it by gold, for example, or commodities, and you can back it now. Now countries can have their technology, they can share their natural resources, they get involved in the system. Free trade is possible, like domestic, global, international trade, not like skewed tariffs. And that's why, again, Trump made amazing trade deals that people didn't get. People that knew were like, this just benefited not only the US, so did the other countries. And it didn't benefit evil. The average person, though, oh, Trump's screwing us over, because mainstream media will tell you he's
Yeah.
screwing us over. And so people have this skewed notion. So they're going back to gold, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, Russia, China. They've got tons of gold. They're using a gold-backed system. And now they're talking about the digitization of gold. So in the future, we will have physical and digital. Okay. In the bad future, only digital, right? Only numbers on a screen. In the past, we only had physical. So we couldn't really do much globally, even though we wanted to, right? What we really feel Earth can be. So we're heading to a physical and digital, right? A physical backed US Treasury note, for example, not the federal note, Treasury, and backed by commodities they called asset-backed digital currency that will move value all over the world. Because you can't, if gold was the standard and I want to go visit Michelle on the other side of the country and I only had gold, I'm not going to bring a bar of gold with me. It's like what, carrying in a gold bag? It's like, well, someone jumps me, my gold's gone.
Yeah.
So what if I needed to send Michelle value, just like I would a text message? I could then use an ISO compliant token or a crypto or a bridge currency, a digital one. And you're already seeing that happen with the digital yuan. They're using a global payment system. I'll tell you about this in a second, to send Michelle that money. And it doesn't even have to go through the bank. It could get there in seconds. So if Michelle needed $5,000 for a podcast or an emergency or a studio, I can give it to her in seconds instead of weeks, and she gets like 4,000.
And there's no waiting for it to clear, like you deposit a check, and then you have to wait sometimes several days for that
exactly
deposit. And you don't even have to I see it all the time. I mean, everybody sees it with their bank account. I think they tell you, oh, it's because you don't have enough money. Yeah, I have enough money to cover those checks. They still hold it. So
there you go. And so there's this talk. I want to pause it here before we get in more of the good stuff. Is the CBDCs, which is valid. Like, oh my gosh, they're tracking it. First of all, we're already tracked. Oh my gosh, it's numbers. It's they can control. 95% of the currency in circulation is already digital. So you're already living in a world like that. And no, there is going to be regulation. There is going to be compliance, because people are afraid that the government will see what they're spending. It's like, well, if you're buying drugs and doing illegal activity and things you shouldn't be doing, then yeah, I would be concerned. Yet if you're building businesses, helping your family, getting healthy and helping others, I don't know. And some people will disagree with that, and some people will agree. At the end of the day, it's not up to me. It's just my perspective. I do know, though, that the route that we're headed will be secure, transparent, and open, and efficient, fast, effective, and something that people can use simply.
Yes.
Because a lot of us would love to save money when we send money instead of having to pay the ATM $3 every time we withdraw. You know how much that adds up every day? It's like we don't take these things for granted. We don't even notice these things. So the future of digitization will be distributed ledger technology. It'll be on-demand liquidity. It will be decentralized finance. Terms that may seem so like Mandarin to people, right? If some of this history was German, this is probably Mandarin, and you speak English. So slow down. Give yourself some grace. You're not going to learn this overnight. We just want to make sure we plant some seeds to start your journey on this, because there are a lot of people waking up and they're researching these things, right? And they're like, okay, what is the future? I don't want to wait till later. I want to know now. And that's the best thing you can do, is start educating and research. And we'll make sure to link some of my resources. Definitely. So the whole CBDC thing, originally that was the bad timeline where they control everything. If you disobeyed, you're
the programmable. So there's a difference between decentralized CBDC and programmable. So the programmable is CBDC is the bad timeline that you're referring to, which is kind of what China's under right now.
The CCP.
So this is real.
This is absolutely.
It's already being used.
Yes, just because it's real, though. Yeah, just because it's real doesn't mean it'll last or it'll be massively adopted. There's a lot of inventions that last. There's businesses that are real that are gone in 2 months. Yeah. So you've got to make the notion that look at the world, look what we just woke up to, look how many people are waking. You really think people are going to say, "Oh, sure, government, tell me what I can spend." Oh, take my money if I don't. No, that would have happened in 2030 after 5 more years of lockdowns where we have no hope and we lost our mind.
Yes.
That was the original goal. So everything they wanted to do by 2030, they're having to do now.
Yeah, and they're speeding up their timeline because everybody's so awakening. And kind of when you really look at it and take a step back, you're like, well, gee, we're awakening because of what you did.
Exactly.
Like
Yep.
you're the own cause of your awakening. And I get it too. A lot of times they're often the cause that they are the solution for.
Yes.
Oh, let me create this problem that I have this little nefarious
Yeah.
solution over here for. And you're
Problem
like,
reaction
yeah, I don't want
solution.
that. But this I think was the unexpected thing, which for
Yeah.
people like you and I were like, well, yeah, people awoke because none of it made sense. And even for people like, I mean, I had been waking up for years and
Yeah.
years, but I mean,
Yeah.
so many of my friends that I would like never have guessed. And you hear people all the time, you're like, I don't even know who they are anymore. And you're like, yay,
Yeah.
thank God.
That was me. Yeah, that was me. Or vice
Yeah.
versa. Vice
Yeah,
versa. And
exactly. Like
I
yeah,
say
I
this
was
as
one of
like
those
a
that questioned from the beginning, like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't
good.
make sense.
There you
And,
go. Question everything.
exactly,
There you go. And
exactly.
that's okay to ask questions. And I say this little quote jokingly. It's like, well, we woke up because God stepped in and said, hold my water. Instead of
Yeah,
hold my beer, it's like, all right, hold on, watch
yeah.
this. And the world just, I see it. And we
Yeah.
said it best right there. Probably one of the most important parts of this segment is the scary doom timeline that many people live out and are fearful and get
Mhm.
anxious of was the timeline designed for 2025 to 2030. And only for that to work had to happen then because they needed 5 years to literally
Mhm.
break the backs of the world. No
Yeah.
hope, no faith, all fear, all shame, all guilt, all loss, all anger, all pain, all defeat, all evil.
Yes.
Then we would go, all right, just give us some money.
Yeah. Anything to,
Just
I just
anything
need
to pay our bill.
relief. Oh,
That's how, so they had to break us in order to make us be compliant
yeah.
with their programmable social credit CBDC. So we can all agree, and those that watching, you're doing a great job. We can all agree that we're not broken.
No,
We're
we're
actually
awake.
rising. We're rising. We're waking. We're coming out better. We're growing. We're awake.
Yes.
We see you. We're calling it out. We're speaking. We're getting censored. We're marching. We're
Yeah.
protesting. We're sharing. We're going viral. You cannot stop what is coming.
No, and even if you
I
just
got the
sit back
chills
for
just
a
saying that.
moment, yeah.
I
And
got
if
the
you
chills.
sit back for a moment and just think about it, and never in history have I seen such news cycles come out. And I'm talking more
Yeah.
alternative news, but even mainstream news. But it's like just all the things that are coming out and the truths that are happening and the things that are being questioned. You're like, you can't even keep up with it. I've never
Yeah.
seen anything like it because more and more people are awake and
Yeah.
more people are like, I want to know.
Yeah.
And as I've said on my show all the time, I'm always like, you know what? The truth will set you free.
Yes.
That fear, that fear will enslave you, but
Yes.
the truth will set you free. Lies will enslave you every single time. But the more truth
Yes.
you know, it's like it's not even scary anymore because what have you got to be scared of? You know the truth now.
Yes.
And even if the
Yes.
truth is bad, you're like, but I still know it and I feel so much freer just
Yes.
knowing it.
Yes. It's like the anxiety we get, the
Yeah.
fear, all that stuff is our spiritual self, our higher, whatever you want to call it. It's like
Yeah.
that part of our soul that says it's okay that your world's going to be shattered and your reality's broken because on the other side, you're
Yeah.
at peace, you're connected, you're safe, you're
Mm-hmm.
knowing, you're not just believing, you're knowing, you're not just thinking, you're knowing, you're not guessing, you're knowing. And everyone would like to know what's happening. And when you have that inner peace and you have that calm nervous system, you will see those answers come up. So I'm so glad
Yeah.
you touched up on that because yeah,
And I would
right now it's
say,
hard.
yeah. And I would additionally say is once you do see the truth in things, you can't unsee it.
Right.
And then you just sort of keep questioning more and more because the more truth that you know and understand,
Yeah.
the more obvious the lies are.
Yes.
And it just becomes, and then you start, that's why I think the awakening is happening so quickly because these big lies were exposed in such a big way.
Yeah.
I mean, a really big way these lies were exposed. So now it's opening everybody else's eyes to, well, if they were lying about that, then what else are they lying about? And I think sometimes people get, and even myself, I used to be like, man, it's this crazy time where nobody trusts anything. But when you know truth, you know truth. And when you see it, you can't unsee it. And therefore you go forward with a much clearer vision.
Yes. Love it. So good. So good. So the best is yet to come. And there's plenty of people out there that are awake, whether you think. So to start wrapping and putting this all together and concluding it. So what's happening now? Where are we going next? So these countries are aligning.
Mm-hmm.
The US dollar is being so inflated. You're talking hyperinflation. And when these countries, just think of like I have this map, like a zoom out, you see the globe, right? You see, or whatever whatever shape, size the world, right? Whatever the world you see, you have all these countries, and imagine they start going, nah, we don't want this.
Yes.
No, we don't want that. We don't want that anymore. And they're doing it right now. They're already making partnerships, dealers, while we're trying to chase the rat race, watch TV, keep up with the Kardashians,
Yeah,
go
print it
party.
away.
Yeah, just going crazy, or we're just by ourselves. We have no community support. So find community is huge. What's happening is now when these dollars come back, I don't know when it'll happen. It will, because they're already doing it.
Yeah.
When the flood comes back, now that's where you have a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have literally a sinking ship that a wave hits, right?
Yeah.
A sinking ship sinks slow. When that one wave hits, a regular wave the ship could usually handle, boom. When will that happen? I don't know. I pray the best thing will happen during that time. I can't, it's hard to even say and imagine the panic or chaos of, that's why you have, like you said earlier, the bank runs, right? People go into their bank, can't get your money out. If all of us went to our bank and asked for all of our savings, they don't have it. They're lending it out in fractional reserve banking. That they make money off lending our money out. So to protect yourself, as these nations are going back to gold, and just a side note, there is good people in the US that are preparing for this, led by someone most people don't like, who was the president, Trump, and all the other good people in military and places. There are good people. Remember, there's Jedis, not just Darth
not
Vader.
everybody is corrupt.
Okay, there's still Jedis, not everybody. There's a small bunch that makes the world think everyone's corrupt. There's a small bunch of parasites, but there's good people, right? There's good people that are preparing for this. And there's all of us, right? Exactly. Like there's a group of people at that high level, because I'm not a president. Can't write executive orders like Trump did, or do US codes.
And I'm not in these secret organizations. I don't know behind the scenes.
But we can do podcasts, and we can make reels, and we can do our digital work, and we can hold the frequency. So we are part of the plan.
And we can do our own research into history and into the present and see how the history is repeating itself and how it's replaying. And it's the biggest eye opener.
Yes, because there's people like, oh, no one's coming to save us. No, nobody is. You save yourself. You have connection to God, and you trust and have faith that people in higher places are doing the same. So together, we're going to help each other and save each other and help us grow, instead of, one guy with red hair everyone hates going to save us all. He's doing his part. We got to do our part.
We the people need to save we the people.
We have more power. They fear us more than we fear them. We just are flipping that now, right? So we're going back to a gold standard. The whole monetary system is changing. The Bank of International Settlement labeled gold as from a tier 3 to a tier 1 asset for liquidity. And the last part of this all is, remember those balloons? There's balloons out there with trillions and trillions of dollars. They're called Nostro and Vostro accounts. These are accounts that have been locked up in accounts all over the world and cannot be released, like dripped, flooded into the people, because there's no on-demand liquidity. We have no technology for liquidity until you learn about something called XRP, which is a bridge for on-demand liquidity. So where we're heading is bright. It may get bumpy first. This has got to fall. And don't worry, because when people think it falls, like, oh, we're done, something will rise. It's falling to create a level playing field. So every country starts from scratch, and we can turn the page on this decade and century and thousands of centuries of evil, control, manipulation, slavery, God, you name it.
And it has to fall, because it can't even, like, it has to fall, and don't be afraid of it, because it can't sustain itself.
No, it's a debt-based economy. Debt-based economy cannot sustain itself.
It has to collapse. No, in one way, shape, or another, it can't continue on like this.
So the time from the collapse to the rise, that's the unknown. That's the part where, like, all right, get some generators, have some water, have some cash,
have a little bit of preparedness,
get some precious metals, because you'd rather be proactive than reactive. You'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. I'm not saying we're going into war. I'm just it's pretty scary, but that's World War III and all that stuff. It's to scare people. And with China and Taiwan, Ukraine and Russia, these places, not the people of these countries, they're good people. It's the governments and the regimes and the agendas and the nastiness and the corruption. That's who China and Russia are going after.
It's that small pocket of people that are so small.
Yes, it's the little parasites. So you got to flush them out to free and liberate these people of this world. So,
but just like that bully that you mentioned on the playground,
Yeah.
You're just sitting on top of all the kids on that playground.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good analogy.
Calling all the shots. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So get rid of the bully, free the people, flood the money back to the world, reset, good reset, not the great
Yeah,
reset.
no.
That's the other time we're not
Yeah.
going
I do
down.
like the Great Awakening, you know, that
Great Awakening, sure. Solar
or
Flash,
whatever.
Return of Christ, 5D. There's so many names
Yeah.
for it. Everyone, the Hopi prophecy, the
Mhm.
144, the Rainbow Bridge. We've heard all of these terms.
Yeah.
They all come back to what I'm explaining
Mm-hmm.
in simplicity here. And then when that happens, now you have the world coming out better.
Yes.
And what does that look like? I can only speculate. I'm just optimistic. I'm excited from what I've seen from free energy, suppress cures, get rid of the pharmaceuticals,
Yeah.
like going back to holistic, changing our education,
Yeah. Because
eliminating the
with that wider
manipulation.
lens that you look at, you realize that although our topic today is focused mostly on money and the
Yeah.
economy, it actually is everything. It does include
Yes.
our school systems and the food and the everything. So there isn't like this isn't it's going to touch everything, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes.
We're focusing on a small piece of it, but this good that's coming out, I believe, as you do, I'm very optimistic about what's happening. And I do believe that that good is going to spread across all sort of sectors in our world.
We just got to start that spark for that fire. And it's not a scary
Yeah.
fire.
And we have to have
It's like
hope and
a
yeah, and
drop for
don't
the
fall into the
tsunami.
fear. Like
Yeah.
just learn the truth. The more you educate yourself, like I said, the truth will set you free. So educate yourself. That's the only way you're going to know the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the best is yet to come, and it'll get bumpy. So what can you do? Last thing, what can you do?
Yeah. So what's our preparedness plan?
Yeah. And you know, you talk to a bunch of people, they'll give you different lenses. Oh, put your money here. There's like a HRSA, like a savings account with higher interest. I just and let here. Okay, so it's either one of two things, and then I'll break it down. One is education. So you start with education if you don't feel comfortable moving money, because some people are terrified to move their money out of the bank because they've left it there for years and they don't know where to put it. So education is so important. Learn about it. There's a 10-part YouTube series, The Hidden Secrets of Money, that will summarize a lot with what I shared, and you can watch it in 10 episodes. Like binge watch that. That's a great binge on a Saturday. Watch that instead of something else.
Yeah, and it makes you less scared because even if you are awake, like sometimes like I understand a lot of this stuff that's happening, clearly not all of it, but even I'm like, where do I put this stuff? Like what do I do? So sometimes it can be I think we're sort of in this figuring that out phase a little bit. There's some solid things that you can do, but I think there is some
knowledge is great. Because if someone took all your money and you know how to get it all back or know what to do, you're never really lost it. It's the knowledge you never had. That's why it's scary to lose the money.
So true.
Right? The skills that you don't have. That's why it's terrifying to put money in an investment or something. So educate yourself. That's a great series. My chat, Telegram, I drop a lot of money stuff. I have hundreds of highlights on my Come Out Better page, all about money and education. My website, comeoutbetter.com. So those are options. And then God, YouTube University, there's so much. Just use discernment and have a filter. Second thing is action. So education and action, learning and doing. Because some people just learn and not do anything.
Yeah.
Or they'll do all this stuff and never learn it, and then they screw up.
And so I think a lot of us are in action because we're paralyzed. We're paralyzed, not necessarily free from fear, but we're paralyzed in I don't know what to do. And that is where the education piece comes in. So like educate, because it takes away the fear and it takes away that inaction as well.
And have patience too. You guys aren't going to learn everything. Like what I'm sharing here and what Michelle's sharing, we didn't just like learn this last night before this podcast. This is years and years of research. If we just want to put this all together so you guys can learn it in like an hour instead of 10 months, which is great. That's why it's so great that she does this for you guys and has her podcast. Because it's like we're in a way, people that know history are time travelers.
Yeah, and it's connecting the dots.
Yes.
Because a lot of times those dots are intentionally not connected for us. But once you start looking in many different history things, not just one set of history, but once you start really looking at history all over the place, you start to really connect the dots and see, oh, I see how this led to that. So what seems disconnected, now you can see the connections.
Yes, exactly. Very good. So now with the doing, two things. So we had learning or doing. Now with doing, we have two things. Doing, you have two options. One, some people just don't have money. Like they're in debt. They have $100 in their account. Like what do I do? create cash flow. I know this is going down, but the more cash flow you can generate, you can then look to turn it into something that will hold that value, or something that will be valuable in the future. Because there's somebody like, well, I don't have money, I'm just going to wait till it crashes and I'm good. You can. You absolutely can. Like I said, I'd rather be proactive and I'd rather have money coming in while that's happening instead
and I think it's how you're going to experience the transition. So if you think of it, well, how am I going to experience the transition? If I just want to wait for the transition to happen to me, you might want to look again into that.
And I pray that people get the money back there that they were stolen from taxes and from theft and from fraud and fees and fraction orders. I pray everyone gets that.
And there's already countries doing away with taxes, so it's
we've already passed the bill back 2 months ago to eliminate. So it's like we're heading that direction, and we didn't even touch in this term Nasara Jasara. That's another conversation too. But the premise of that is money that was taken is coming back to us. So that's why you'll have people that I've talked to like, well, I've researched Nasara, I'm not going to do anything. I'll just get all my money back. I'm like, that's fine. If you feel good with that, I can't help. Like, that's great. If that's your choice, I support you. And I pray it works in that way, because I would love that to happen to me too.
Oh, absolutely.
All of us, right? All of us. Also, realistically, right? If you don't have money, find cash flow. So that's why what I do with direct sales or network marketing, great business for people that you can start right away and start building up. You can go sell clothes from your closet. You could literally Google 70 ways to make money in this world. And there's so many ideas. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
There's so much money out there.
And it's so much done for you. Like you and I are both in network marketing, and I promote my stem cell activation packages on this channel. Get a hold of me, get a hold of Chris. Like,
there you go. I got him. Talk to her.
Yeah. I mean, like, just find something that you love and are passionate about, and they're much more done for you streams of income.
Yes. So for those that get that, that's your call to action, right? Create some cash flow, get some income going, budget, all those things. Now, the last part, people that do have excess capital, excess cash in the bank, savings account. I remember, it's not financial advice.
Absolutely.
Not financial advice.
We're just, it's just our thoughts. And
people will ask me, Chris, what do I do with my 401k? I'm like, I can't tell you what to do with that. And then I'll say, I don't have one myself. So I don't know. Say, should I sell it? I'm like, I can't tell you to sell it or buy it. I just can give you information you can look at, videos to watch, you choose. Right now, 401k, Social Security. Now you also have the stock market. Like I sold my stocks and I'm fine with that. I made some money, sold them, put it elsewhere. So if you have that excess capital, make sure you budget before you put it somewhere, because there's a whole rule. There's two things, right? You're either investing in something or you're just transforming one thing into another, like energy. Right? Water can become a solid when it gets cold. Water can become a steam when it heats up. Right? And income streams, and we didn't even tap into that, but you guys
okay.
Our financial system is based off.
There's water. A lot out there on there. Right? There's a lot of stuff out on there. Maybe we'll come back again for like a.
I'm down. Let's run it back again. We can talk about like terminology and water
etymology
language. And so the liquidity aspect, we have a liquidity crisis, meaning if you all went to your bank to get your money, they don't have it. There's no liquidity. They don't have it liquid
because they don't have to back it.
They don't have anything to back it.
Anything. So.
Right. So think of liquidity. Now, if we're going to solve that with a technology made by Ripple, and that's why it's all under SEC, because once that case is done, floodgates open, yada, yada. So you got to ask yourself, what can I transform this into, instead of the fear of like, what can I invest into? Because some people fear investment because they don't get an ROI. They don't know how long it'll take. What if they never get it back? Because some investments don't work. They go to zero. Some investments don't give you anything back, and it was a waste.
And so there's risk involved in everything.
There's risk in everything. You've got volatility in crypto. Gold and silver has gone up 5% in just the last few weeks, all because of what's happening with this dollar.
And Bitcoin is starting to, as of right now, Bitcoin is like really went up. It's up to $30,000 now.
So people are transforming this into this, or this into digital, or this into land, or this into whatever. So what I do is
things that grow. And I've heard a lot about the artwork thing. Like there's so many different things to investigate.
And we got to start learning this ASAP. So where do you put your money? Make a budget. You know what's coming in, going out, because people will say, well, Chris, I invested all my money in here. I'm like, well, how do you pay for gas? I got to go sell my silver. Like, okay, but you want to have some cash, because we still live in a world that takes
don't get rid of all of it.
I wish I could go buy a tank of gas.
I know, right?
Wouldn't that be the day? But who knows? So ask yourself, where, if not the bank savings account, where do I feel safest putting my value of wealth for now, whether it's zero ROI or a big one? And then you got to determine that
Yep.
based off so it's like education, learn and educate. You got to have these little, it's like a little flow chart. And then when you put it elsewhere, you feel more comfortable. You can sleep at night. It's protected and it's not in the bank. So you don't have to wake up and see, oh, Signature
It's
Bank
almost like
is closed.
where's my new piggy bank going to be? Because the banks aren't a good piggy bank right now. So what piggy bank am I going to be? I need all this cash flow, like you said, to buy groceries, to buy gas, because that's still our method of exchange. But with that extra, even that little bit of extra that you can put away, where's that new piggy bank going to be for you? It could be in gold, it could be in silver, it could be in art, it could be in land. Do your research.
You said it perfectly. Even if it's $50, guys, even if $100,
even if
like,
it's
that's not
$10 is all you can do
even
a
if
week.
it's not going to do. It's not about doing much right now. It's just about getting it one place to another, because the place you have it, the piggy bank is like, imagine it's made out of clay and it's starting to melt. And it's like, oh shit. And then all of a sudden you look in the piggy bank and it's not even there. Your money's not even there. So yes, to conclude it, educate, learn, take action, either make cash flow or put money in a safer place to store the value. Precious metals is great. You can ask Michelle or me. I have a person I trust and work with dearly. She helps a lot
we'll
of
have
people.
a ton of links underneath
We'll have the
the
links for you
description
guys
on everything.
and if you do the metals, just ask questions. Make sure you know the dealer. Make sure you get the process, know the different pricing, because, just like anything,
you have to educate yourself.
People can manipulate things. They can lie to you. Just got to be careful. There's scammers on Instagram, Telegram. Just be careful and slow down.
Yeah, because like you said, people know that people are looking to trade out, this cash, because this cash that was worth $1 that we said is lost about 93% of that. What you're looking to do is to keep that at the same level or higher. So you want to keep your dollar at $1 or higher to hedge off all the devaluation. So that's all you're doing. You're trying to save the value of it somewhere else outside of the paper fiat money that we're using.
Very good. And then the last part of it. So after that, you can also look at the digital. And that's where people are like, I don't get this. How do I buy this? I know it takes some time, right? Whether it's digital currency, that'll be compliant. There's 20,000 plus cryptos, 95% or more, 99% won't even be around in a few years. Won't even be around. Just like the whole CBDC credit score thing. It's not going to be around. It's here. They're here to show people it's not going to be around because of regulation, energy,
and sometimes we need
efficiency.
to see what we don't want to wake up and to fight for what we do want. Like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. So sometimes it's just a matter of like, well, I needed to see this thing that I don't want to wake up and be like, ooh, no, I don't want that. And then, the more people that wake up to that and the more consciousness that says that's not what I want, then your timeline shifts.
Yes. Can't tell, must show. You can't tell them, you must show them.
Yes, exactly.
So learn about digital tech, assets I'm invested in, XRP, XLM, XTC. Elon Musk just turned Twitter into the X company. I'll let you come to your own conclusion what that is. He wants to be Twitter to be or X to be the most prominent, well-known financial institution in the world. I don't know what other clue to give you guys other than that. And that's the guy who helped create PayPal, which is a payment processing. And his name is X. And Starlink is like an X.
Yep.
And I'll just stop there. So dive into that, learn about it. It's just, you got to pay attention. You'll see it. You'll see it, because that'll be the technology that everything can run with, alongside, through, and out to move the value of the world. Because we're going greater value-based commodity or value-based economy instead of a faith debt-based belief control economy.
And I think, to wrap it sort of up, like, that's where we've come. When you're in this type of economy, that's what creates innovation and new things. When you're just paid for nothing, it doesn't strike innovation. It doesn't promote free thinking and critical thinking. So I think we're in a really good spot. We've created a lot of problems that there's some really smart people, maybe us, that are going to come up with the best solutions for everyone, for we the people.
Absolutely. And we'll end it there. Best is yet to come. Thank you. This is probably I would say the best hour and 15 minutes I've ever spoken and heard. And you did awesome. And for those watching, watch this again, share this, please, take some notes, and go
look
check
in the
all this
descriptions below, because in the descriptions on all the channels are going to be there with lots of links on this one, lots of links, so that you can do your own research, empower yourself, do your own research.
That's it.
Absolutely.
So
Chris, I can't wait to have you back on.
Let's do it. Run it back.
Yes.
People got to hear this message.
We're on a roll. We're on a roll. We're waking people up.
That's what we're here. We're doing God's work.
We're doing God's work.
So thank you very much. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you soon. And yeah, this was great.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care, guys. God bless. Best is yet to come.